distinct lives. I spent the first half of my career, that is 22 years, in the high pressure, zero error world of the Indian Navy. And in the Navy, of the submarine arm, where I commanded the submarine Shankush. I spent the second half of my career, that is now the last 21 years, in the corporate arena, coaching leaders, teams, and individuals to navigate the complex waters of leadership and personal development. And here is what I've learned from both, right? From the ocean's depths and the training halls. The uniform changes, battlefield changes, the weapons change. From torpedoes, you go to corporate deadlines. From missiles, you go to career goals. And there is team dynamics. But the mind of the leader, the dilemmas we face, the fears that may keep us awake at 2 in the morning, those have not changed in over 7,000 years. Whether you're leading a massive organization, managing a small team, a startup, or simply trying to lead your own life with purpose, the fundamental rules of engagement remain the same. We are here to launch a journey. Over the next 12 weeks or so, we are going to walk through the Mahabharata. But before we go and take a single step, before we discuss strategy, conflict, or the battlefield and the lessons to learn, we must first agree on the map that we are using. I want to be very clear about something right now. Firstly, this is not a religious discourse. We are not here to chant some stotras or mantras, and we are not here to judge characters as holier than thou saints. Secondly, Mahabharata is simply too large, and even the strength and weaknesses of the characters is fairly large. And to do justice to even any one person in the 30 to 40 minutes session is very challenging task. Hence, we are going to discuss only the crucial lessons that we should take and implement in our lives. All right. So let's dive into the depth of the Mahabharata and over to your Purva.
Yes, sir. Now that we've set the premise for today's discussion, I want to ask you, sir, specifically that, as Indians, we've grown up watching the Mahabharata on TV. We kind of know the story. So, why do we need to decode it again? And what is the basis going to be for this decoding?
Beautiful question. See, most of us have grown up with a version of the Mahabharata that we learned from, or say, grandmother's tales, the Amar Chitra Katha, or the famous television serials. While those stories are culturally very rich, from a data perspective, they are often what one can call corrupted files. Because over thousands of years that have passed, the original Jaya, which was just, I think, about 8,000 verses, the core victory text, so called like a chronicle of the battle, that's what Jaya was over time expanded. It became from 8,000 verses to 24,000 verses, and then it became the massive 1 lakh verses that it is today. So poets, playwrights, and regional storytellers, they added their own flavors. Folklore was mixed with fact. Real characters were turned into holier than thou people. And therefore, if we are to derive any serious battle-tested leadership or life lessons, we cannot rely on folklore. We need raw data. And this is why this series is different. We are basing our entire journey on what is called as the critical edition of the Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute, Pune, or BORI, is in Pune, which over a period of 5 decades, scholars comb through various thousands of manuscripts, right from Kashmir to Kerala, from Cambodia in Sharada script, in Grantha, in Devanagari script. So all over practically the world, these scripts are there, and they perform what is called as a forensic audit of the text. They removed all the later interpolations, so-called fluff, the extra things, and distilled the epic down to the most authentic original core. And this is like the source code of the Mahabharata. Firstly, I mean, I'm no Sanskrit Pandit, and hence to navigate this whole thing in the Sanskrit masterpiece would be practically impossible for me. So we are using the translation by Dr. Vivek Debroy. It's widely regarded as the most faithful, unabridged English translation of the critical edition of the Mahabharata, which is available today. And just to give you a context, let me just show you what it looks like. So I have here, this is one book. Like this, there are 10 books. So you can imagine how massive this entire books are. And
That's
reading everything,
going to
it's
occupy the entire shelf, sir.
absolutely, it does occupy the entire cell. So it's a tough task. Because, and one other thing is the critical, the why does this matter to us, you and me as a leader? All of us are leaders at various levels. Because the critical edition does not give you the black and white. It doesn't give you a good or an evil fairy tale. What it does give you is a gray, gritty, and an uncomfortable reality of human nature. It doesn't give you gods, it gives you flawed, ambitious, and conflicted men and women. It shows us that even the good guys, the so-called the Pandavas are supposed to be good guys, they made terrible strategic errors. And that's exactly what the real world is. It is not about heroes and villains. It is entirely about the decisions that people take and the consequences that they have to face. So rest assured, what you will hear in this series of ours today and in the series is not just the story. Story we all know. It is the most authentic, verified, and potent version of the Mahabharata that exists. That is the critical edition of the Mahabharata, the English translation by Vivek Debroy. And let us start at the very beginning. And we are talking about a man who is often celebrated as the ultimate hero.
Yes, so that was what I was going to ask you about. Most of us, we've grown up with the image of Bhishma being the ultimate hero of sacrifice and, sticking to his word. But you, I think about it very differently. Why do you think that, he's flawed and he's as human as probably you and me?
Okay, more than me just being thinking about it, I've been thinking about it for a long time and I've heard it from many other people. Therefore, I'm just putting it across. It's not that my original thought has come out suddenly saying, okay, I'm just trying to put forth what I learned over the period of years. Because, like I said, if you look, we start at the very beginning and talking about a man who is often celebrated as the ultimate hero, Grandsire Bhishma. But if you look closely at his decisions through the lens of the BORI text, Bhandarkar Oriental Bhishma represents a very specific, dangerous trap that many high performers fall into. And I like to call it the oath trap. An oath that becomes a strategic disaster. Today, we are going to explore how a single emotional decision by a young star performer destroyed the sustainability of an entire empire. That's how powerful Bhishma was. Over to you now. Anything.
Yes, sir. So I was just looking at the live chat that's happening on our YouTube, and I'm very happy to tell you that we have people who've joined in from Pune, from Mumbai, and even from Maldives. So I think,
Wow.
yeah.
Great. Great.
So we have an audience who's really interested in what you're talking about and what they want to know about. So, I want to dig into the specifics of this oath. We've always believed that Bhishma made three promises that, first of all, he would not aspire to be the king of the kingdom. The second is that he will not get married. And the third one is that he will unconditionally serve whoever sits on the throne. So,
Right.
this third vow specifically, I want to talk about. Is that actually there in the text?
Okay. Before we go to the third vow,
Hmm.
and to understand the magnitude of the error that Bhishma created, you have to understand the health of the system before the crisis. Now just imagine Hastinapur, not just a kingdom, but as a massive legacy institution. Let's call it Kuru Industries or Kuru Corporation. It's a big publicly listed company for a moment. and its chairman is, let's say, King Shantanu. He's a very capable ruler. He's a highly capable ruler. The stock price of the organization is very high because of the capabilities. The borders are secure. Uh, but like many aging leaders, he's looking for two things: legacy and happiness. And he has a son, Devrat. I'm sure of you know the story of Ganga and Ganga Putra, Devrat, and there were eight. Before that, there were seven children that Ganga had. So I'm not going into that. So Bhishma was the eighth son was to Ganga. Now understand who Devrat is. In the critical edition, which is the real historical text, Devrata is not just a good son, he is a prodigy. He has been trained by Ganga initially itself, before she gives him to Shantanu. He is well trained in theology. He is well trained in statecraft by none other than Brihaspati, who is the guru of the gods. He has been trained in warfare by Parshuram, the ultimate warrior. Devrat is the perfect successor. Couldn't have been anybody. He's a unicorn executive. The board of directors of Kuru Corporation, let's say the ministers, respect him, highly regarded when he comes in. The people love him. From a leadership perspective, Kuru Industries, Kuru Corporation is in the safest position possible. The succession plan is locked. They know that after Shantanu, Devrat is going to ascend to the throne. Fantastic. Life is great. Then comes the twist. The king Shantanu falls in love because Ganga has left him and gone. So he is alone. He has nobody to, there's no love life in his life now, and he falls in love with a fisherman's daughter named Satyavati. So Shantanu meets Satyavati. She is the daughter of a Dashraj, that is the chief of the fishermen. Now, do not mistake this for a simple romance. In political terms, the fishermen were a powerful guild. Imagine this is a riverine ecosystem. The rivers ruled, and here the fisherman's king. Therefore, you're the powerful guy. They're not some just a normal fisherman types. They control the river trade. So, marriage is a strategic alliance also. Anyway, Santanu falls in love with Satyavati, and he wants to marry her. So, as is the custom even today, also, I mean, he goes to the father saying, "I want to marry your daughter." But the fisherman is a shrewd negotiator. He's not awed by the king. Shantanu, the king of Kuru Corporation Industries, the chairman has come to me for my daughters. And he treats this as a business deal, pure and simple. So he lays down a condition, a non-negotiable clause in the contract. He looks the king in the eye and says, no emotions here. No big lamba choda speech. All that. He says, the critical edition is very clear. He says, I will give you my daughter, but here is the clause. The son born to her must succeed you as the king, and not your current son, Devrat. Imagine you are the chairman, you already got your succession lined up, everything is set, but you fall in love, happens. Now the girl's father is saying, Devrat will not succeed you as the king. He is the king. He knows that his company's constitution, which can call as a dharma, he cannot just for on whims and fancies disinherit Devrat. The public love him, the shareholders love him, the ministers love him. Devrat is highly competent, he's popular and the rightful heir. But to fire him just without cause, saying I'm in love with so and so, would be a violation of governance. On the other hand, now he's a lonely man who desires this woman. And you might remember that he's lonely and pining for his first wife, Ganga. She had left him, all that stuff. As a single
Yes.
father, he had brought up Devrat after she leaves him with him, and who's now about 16 years of age, Devrat. Shantanu does not want any conflicted leaders would do. He doesn't say yes. He doesn't say no. He simply walks away. He just gives the indication that, okay, my bad luck. I cannot marry her because my son is going to be the king. So I cannot
Right.
accede to your request.
Hmm.
And this is here, I would say, is he simply walks away. First leadership failure of the Mahabharata. He goes into what one might call as depression. He withdraws to his chambers. He stops managing the operations of the company. The leader is present physically but absent mentally because he's pining for this lady love life of his god. But he doesn't tell anybody, and the organization starts to drift. Devrat understands what is happening, so he asks his minister also, "Kya ho raha hai?" Why is Shantanu acting in this way? Why is he not taking part in day-to-day operations? Why is he absent from all the meetings, etc.? So he notices that his father is disengaged. He investigates this. He asks, like, to the chariot driver, to the ministers, and goes. Then finally, he understands what the issue is. He goes to a fisherman chief himself. He asks, "What is the price of for my father's happiness?" Simple, straightforward, no emotions, no
Hmm.
big romance, and my father is in love with your daughter, all that stuff. He simply says, "What is the price for my father's happiness?" And the fisherman repeats the clause, saying, "My grandson must be king." Simple.
Okay.
No drama.
Hmm.
No drama. He just says,
Hmm.
"My grandson must be king."
Hmm.
Now let's put ourselves in Devrat's shoes. You are the rightful heir.
Right.
You are the most qualified. You have worked your whole life for this role. You are the best person for this job. But you see your father suffering.
Hmm.
Happens in modern lives also. You see your parents are having something, your idea is something different. So Devrata makes a calculation and he thinks he's solving the problem forever. So he
Hmm.
says, "Fine, I agree with you." He says, "I renounce my claim to the throne. Satyavati's son will be king."
Okay.
Problem solved.
Hmm.
Now, that's the first what they call as the commitment that he makes.
Hmm.
That I commit to you that your grandson will be king. I am not going to be the king.
Hmm.
But the fisherman is smarter. He's a great negotiator. Okay, he's smarter. He's looking at a long-term risk. He says, "I trust you. As a prince, I fully understand you. I trust you. I have full faith in you. You are a man of integrity and you will keep your word. I agree to that. But what about your sons?" He says, "Tomorrow when you marry and you will have sons, you might have children, but your children will be warriors. They will say, 'I am the rightful heir. I cannot take this risk.' The deal is off." And I'm sure most of us relate to this, to various land deeds that we have today in India. The problem with title deeds. In Maharashtra, we have this 7 by 12 extract for the land that is one of the biggest problems and later disputes in land transactions.
Yes.
Massive. This problem has been going on for 7,500 years. So Shantanu is very smart. He says, "Look, so here that means Bhishma, if you notice here, has only made. So Bhishma says, okay, no problems. This is where the history completely turns. Now Devrata is backed into a corner. He could have walked away and said, okay, this is a very unreasonable demand. The stability of the kingdom is more important than my father's romantic life. But he doesn't. And driven by this, probably now in hindsight, we can say the intense emotional desire. So Devrat becomes emotional here first time here. He does not display emotional intelligence. That means I don't think he wants to be the perfect son, to be the hero. He looks at the sky, and the text says the atmosphere in the room changed, and he raises his hand and takes that what is now called as the terrible oath. He says to the fisherman king, the king, he says to Satyavati's father, "Look, I've already given up the kingdom. Now listen to this. To ensure your fears about my children are put to rest, I shall never marry. I shall never father a child. I will remain a brahmachari, a celibate for life. The throne is yours." And the texts say in the critical edition that the celestials rained flowers, and but the gods cried out saying, "Bhishma, Bhishma." That means now when you see the literal translation of Bhishma, he is not the great. The literal translation of Bhishma is terrible.
Oh.
Bhishma is the one who took those terrible vows because it wasn't a celebration. It was a gasp of shock. Oh my God, what is he doing?
Hmm.
He's taking this terrible oath. It was the universe recognizing that something unnatural had just happened. In that moment, Devrat died and Bhishma was born. After that, the prince became the guardian. The leader became the trustee. And while on the face of it, it looked like a heroic act of sacrifice, I'm going to argue that from a leadership perspective, that was a catastrophic strategic error. Remember, Devrat intervenes voluntarily. Devrat goes on his own initiative to the fisherman chief. His
Hmm.
father does not send him. This is
Hmm.
crucial. No one summons him, no one pressurizes him, no emergency exists. This is pure preemptive emotional decision by the star performer, a young, capable leader taking an absolute irreversible vow before the consequences are visible, with no exit clause, without systematic consultation. That is a classic tragedy in the making.
Sir,
Folks, okay, one second. Before, if guys, if you are enjoying this conversation, I would request you to please subscribe to my channel so as to be updated about the similar live content which you're going to have every week, where we'll be dissecting the leadership lessons from all other characters of Mahabharata. Okay, so plus first go ahead and subscribe if you're not subscribed.
subscribe, please click on the bell notification also, so that every time we go live you get a notification that we are live, so you can join in faster and not miss out on anything interesting that's happening. So when
Sorry, why did interview again? I forgot that main
Hmm,
question that you asked before.
hmm.
Two versus three, three, there, right?
Yes.
Now, if you before we analyze the consequences of Bhishma's vows, I want to pause that next that critical edition. What the BORI fact check, if you will. So if you ask, generally we've been told that there are three vows. Even all these television serials, and I've been seeing some of them. They all talk about three vows. That first he says, "I'll not be a king." Second, he says, "I'll not marry or have a children." And the third, which most of these, even B.R. Chopra's, I think, Mahabharata also mentions that is, I will serve whoever sits on the throne of Hastinapur. But if you open Dr. Vivek Devroy's translation of the critical edition, Adi Parva, chapter 94, it's I think on page number 297 or something. When you read the Sanskrit text of the oath, you'll find something starting. He never made the third vow. He makes exactly only two vows to a fisherman chief. First is Rajyatyag, which means I relinquish my right to the kingdom. Second is Nari Tyag. I will adopt the vow of celibacy. I'll be issueless. That's it. He stops there. The flowers rain down, the deal is done. So, where did this idea come from that he was the slave of the throne? That he had to serve Dhritarashtra or Duryodhan even when they were wrong? He did not make that promise to the fisherman. He did not make it to his father. He invented it himself. And this makes this tragedy even deeper. See, Bhishma wasn't trapped by a contract to serve the throne. He was trapped by his own interpretation of duty. He assumed that because he had renounced leadership, his only remaining option was followership. And this, for us, is a major leadership lesson. It's a psychological trap that many of us create rule for ourselves that don't exist maybe in our employment contracts. I must always agree with my boss, with the boss. I must never leave this company. And people don't make it nowadays, but that at one time. See, Bhishma caged himself. He could have walked away. He could have intervened whenever he wanted, but he told himself that I am the guardian, so I must remain silent. The third vow wasn't spoken. It was a mental prison that he built for himself. Right.
So that is a very interesting tidbit, and it's a kind of an eye opener, because we always see all those three vows interconnected, kind of. And I especially loved it when you stripped it down from the story into a corporation. So it almost felt like a deal for a merger or an acquisition happening, and then one side has too much leverage over the other. So I'm loving this analogy. And
Thank you.
I want to know, sir, that you've spoken about the terrible oath, and he gave up his throne just to ensure that his father is happy. But from a, business perspective, now that we've made it into a corporation of Hastinapur, did that investment really pay off for him?
Okay. Short answer. Did the investment pay off? The ROI was zero. Devrath thought he was solving the problem. But what problem did he solve? He solved the immediate problem of his father's sadness. So he fixed the symptom, but he created a chronic structural problem for the organization. by removing the most competent person, that is he himself, from the gene pool and the succession line. He left the future of Kuru Corporation or Kuru Industries in the hands of unborn, untested children. He built the entire kingdom on the hope that Satyavati children would be competent. What happened? Satyavati's first son, Chitrangada, died young in a duel because of his arrogance. We often think Chitrangada died because he was young and unlucky. But if you open volume 1, Adi Parva of Vivek Devroy's translation, the text is very brutal. It says Chitrangada was intoxicated by his own prowess. He didn't die defending his country, he died defending his ego. A Gandharva, that is a celestial being, sort of had the same name as his, and Chitrangada had gone on. He was a brave warrior, he was a powerful warrior, no doubts about that. But his ego couldn't walk away because somebody else had the same name. They spent 3 years fighting a duel at Kurukshetra while the kingdom waited. For what? For the leader's ego. So when the leader's ego becomes bigger than the organization mission, they pick battles they don't need to fight, and they will easily lose. So there was no threat to the kingdom. That Gandharva was not fighting against him for his kingdom or to loot him or something like that. He just said that ego that I am the greatest of all warriors, I am Chitrangada, how can you have the same name? Therefore, let's have a fight. And they have a fight, which was over 3 years. Now, his second son, her second son, Satyavati's second son, Vichitravirya, was physically weak and died of alcoholism and consumption without living in anything. It doesn't say exactly what was the uh, problem that he had, but he was definitely weak. He was also a good warrior, but did not have the. So look at the data now. Bhishma bet the future on of the company, the industry, on Satyavati's bloodline. Did that investment pay off? The elder one died because of his ego. Second son was Vichitravirya, which was a child at that time when he was placed on the throne, was did not survive. He got married, and we know the story of Ambalika, Ambar, all that stuff. But that, and when you open, no, the text in the Bori is very critical. It says
Hmm.
Vichitravirya became addicted after his marriage to sensual pleasures.
Hmm.
He locked himself in the chambers for 7 years, ignoring his duties.
Hmm.
The text explicitly, the word used like yakshma, that is a consumption or a wasting disease triggered by his excessive lifestyle.
Hmm.
That means he became incompetent.
Yes, sir.
Just think about it. The kingdom didn't have a CEO. It seems to have a playboy who drank and partied himself to death, while Bhishma, the most competent man in the world, stood outside the door as a mere security guard. Now, this is the tragedy of the oath. Bhishma protected the throne, but he let the kingdom rot. He honored his contract, but he failed the organization. And the dynasty literally collapsed within one generation. The merger between Satyavati and Shantanu and Satyavati failed. And okay, not going to the whole story behind it, but then they had to ultimately bring in a sage, Vyasa, to perform a surrogate ritual called Niyoga, just to keep the bloodline going. Now, here again, another thing. So, when the whole everything was collapsing, Satyavati was a shrewd lady and she was intelligent because, like I said, Shantanu did not give Satyavati the pledge. Bhishma did not give Satyavati the commitment. He had given it to her father. So when the bloodline had collapsed, when Chitrangada died, Vitravirya died, they realized, you look, are there nobody to take this forward? So Satyavati goes to Bhishma, saying, look, she was intelligent. She said, look, when you gave that vow, things were different. But now we don't have a lineage. The kingdom is dying. So please marry Ambalika and Ambika. Marry them. Now they are widows, but marry them. You will have children and our bloodline will continue. Please remove yourself from the vow. All that he does. He says, no. एक बार बोल दिया मतलब बोल दिया. अरे यार सिचुएशन बदल गया है. So how often do we play martyrs at time? That we say I step down, so there is peace in the team, or I take all the workload on myself so that my team doesn't suffer. You think you're being a hero, you think you're being noble, but if the most competent person in the room, which could be you yourself, and you remove yourself from the equation to satisfy the short-term emotional need of your team, you're not serving the system. You are weakening it. True leadership is not about sacrificing yourself, it is about positioning yourself where you can serve the highest good. Devrata served his father, but he failed the kingdom. Bhishma made the classic mistake of the super performer. He thought his job was to protect the throne. He didn't realize that his job was to build the next line for leaders. That's a big trap that leaders get into because he was so dominant that everyone else around him became weak. And I see this constantly. Last 21 years journey, when I conduct my high performance team workshops, you often have a CEO or a vice president or a very senior leader who's brilliant. They have been there, done that. They're like Bhishma, very competent, but the team below is paralyzed. They don't take decisions because the big tree is casting too much shadow. So when I work with senior leadership teams, my first question always, are you building followers? Who's the next in line for your leadership? Are you training him? Are you breeding your leaders? Bhishma bred followers. And the moment he fell, the structure collapsed. Folks, folks, I do hope you'll agree that this is getting even more interesting and intriguing. So please once again go ahead and subscribe to my channel so that we update about similar live content every week, where we would be dissecting the leadership lessons from all the other characters of Mahabharata. Go ahead and subscribe. Yes, Saputwa.
Sir, I actually want to bring up a question that's come on our live stream. It's come from a user called Chax Simplifies. And I'll just read out the question to you. Girish, are you going on to say that Bhishma walked away from crucial decision and reacted emotionally, building up to say Bhishma did this multiple times, including the game of dice where he did nothing?
Absolutely. Bhishma always had a choice to act. Always, every season, they look up to him, in fact, saying, Bhishma, please act. And he would hide behind his so-called, the two vows understandable. The third vow, which was not made, he made up himself, but he hid behind that third vow, saying, whatever Hastinapur Siyasan says is my command. So at every stage, he's been doing that. Now, is that a great leader who hides behind his vows, who hides behind hides behind his value system, even when the system says, look, this is going to lead to disaster? I would say, yes, he always had a choice to act in some other manner. He chose not to. That's his biggest failure.
So I hope your question was answered. And please keep putting in new questions. I am here. The live chat is open. I can definitely put your questions forward to sir, and we'll get even more interesting, intriguing answers. Sir, now you just spoke about his entire personality being a man of his word, and how it slowly became like kind of a liability for him. So,
Yes,
that brings us to the question of the toxic culture of the Kauravas. That Bhishma
yeah.
was the most powerful man, but then he never stopped Duryodhan when all the wrongdoings were happening, or even during the game of dice, nobody stopped the Duryodhan or the Kauravas for the matter.
So taking this forward, so Bhishma sort of became a, a prisoner of his own personal brand. So let's now fast forward. Years have passed. Shantanu is dead. Satyavati's sons are dead. The throne is empty. The kingdom is facing anarchy. There is no leader. Who ruled Hastinapur? It was a ghost regime. The throne was empty. Bhishma did the work of the king, but without authority of the king. Satyavati held authority, but couldn't do the work. Personally, it was a paralyzed state, functioning only on the momentum of Bhishma's personal competence. And this is where that personal branding starts to play. Like I mentioned earlier also, Satyavati, the very woman her father had demanded that oath, the woman, or so-called to say the woman or the father who blocked Bhishma from the throne, she comes to him. She is desperate. She begs him. She says, Bhishma, the line is ending. The context has changed. The emergency is real. Please break your vow. Marry, take the throne, save us. Now, legally, he could have done that. The person who demanded the contract, the Satyavati and her father, were releasing him from it. They released him. The board of directors, the ministers were begging him to take over. The market needed stability. The industry needed stability, but Bhishma refused. His famous lines in the critical edition itself, they says Bhishma declares that even if the laws of nature were to collapse, he would still not abandon his vow. And later retelling condensed this resolve into the famous lines about the sun, moon, and fire. That's very poetic, sounds noble in the poem, but in real life, disastrous. And that is what happens when your personal brand becomes more important to your role. So Bhishma seems to have fallen in love with his own image, the man who never breaks his word. He valued his reputation for consistency over survival of his people and kingdom. Now we always say that the mission is supreme. If the weather changes in the navy, no, the weather changes, you have to change the plan. If the enemy moves, you move. If you say I stick to my original plan because I promised, while the ship is sinking, you're not a leader. You're a liability. So because Bhishma refused to adapt, the kingdom had to resort to desperate measures. And instead of strong king Bhishma even the kingdom eventually got a blind king, Dhritarashtra, and we all know that the blind king became another cause for the war. Lesson for all of us. Consistency is a virtue, but at times rigidity is a vice. Do not let your identity, example, I'm the technical guy, I'm the nice guy, I'm the rule follower, prevent you from doing what the situation demands. Have your value systems. That must be very clear. What is my very purpose? Bhishma did not have a clear purpose. That purpose becomes your guiding light. That is becomes how. All right. Yes.
Uh, Sir, I think this was a very powerful point that you made.
One more
And
question you asked about the toxic culture that was there with this thing.
so I've
Now, this
also
again,
asked that same question for our live chat viewers as well. So, any of our viewers, please let me know in the comments there as well that what you think about the toxic culture.
so this is again a very painful lesson from there. Bhishma's oath was about celibacy. It was not an oath of eternal service to the throne. But in his mind, he vowed to serve whoever sat on the throne of Hastinapur. This sounded like loyalty, but over time it turned into a slavery. Simple, it was slavery. Because he was now bound to the chair, he lost the ability to judge the person in the chair. So when Dhritarashtra, the blind king, made bad decisions, Bhishma advised him but never stopped him. When Duryodhan, who operated with a completely feudal mindset, he bullied the Pandavas and treated the kingdom as his personal property. Bhishma grumbled but did not say stop, did not intervene. And finally, the darkest day which we mentioned was the game of dice which came up. Draupadi is dragged into the hall. She is being humiliated. She looks to the elders. There's Kripacharya there. There is Dronacharya there. There is Dhritarashtra there. All the elders are there of the dynasty. Bhishma himself is there. She looks at Bhishma, the most powerful warrior on the earth, who had the most highest moral authority, and she asks him, "Is this dharma? That here I am a lady, I'm being drugged?" She asks, and everybody, including Bhishma, simply put their heads down. They could have said, "This is not correct." Bhishma does egg on Dhritarashtra in a subtle way कि यार ये ठीक नहीं हो रहा है कुछ कर, but not by authoritative voice. It was a pleading voice कि यार देखो ना. And of course, Dhritarashtra gives her three boons. And then, so in the Mahabharata, what we are, Krishna doesn't enter over here. There is no mention of Krishna in the Draupadi Vastara at all. The critical edition is very, very clear. It's happened in the Mahasabha over there. In the Mahasabha, Draupadi is dragged and she tells them, look, this is not correct. She is not yet disrobed, but it's going to happen. And then Dhritarashtra does intervene. He listens for a change uh, to Bhishma. But Bhishma pleads with him. He doesn't direct him. He doesn't command him. Whereas Bhishma could have commanded him. He says, please, yaar, dekho, yaar, please. ऐसे मत करो. And Dhritarashtra then gives her three boons. And all that happens later on that maybe we can discuss in a later time. So again, Bhishma hides behind the technicalities. Why didn't he take up the stand? Because he says, I'm bound by the throne and the throne has permitted this. So he confused loyalty to the person with the loyalty to the purpose. And many of us sometimes I've noticed this in my last 21 years journey. People stay silent, leaders stay silent, maybe in a family gathering or in a team meeting, when we know it's a bad decision being made, simply because it's not my place. I have to support the boss. How can I go against these people? I'll keep quiet. So Bhishma teaches us a terrifying truth. When good men pledge unconditional loyalty to bad leaders, they become accomplices to the evil. The elders sat silent. Why? Because the culture had become transactional. I serve the throne, I get my perks, I keep my mouth shut. They hadn't quit the job, but they had quit the mission. This is what we call as quiet quitting today. And this is the critical distinction which I make when we run my building teams that don't quit interventions for corporates. The retention isn't just about stopping people from resigning. It's about stopping them from checking out mentally. If your best people, your Bhishmas and Viduras are silent in meetings, you don't have a retention problem. You have a psychological safety problem. And that is harder to fix than a mere resignation letter. People who keep quiet in meetings are the most dangerous. Their people are highly competent, experienced. But in a team meeting, when the leaders ask, okay, any questions, they keep shut, knowing that there's some problem. And then exactly what happens in Mahabharata, Bhishma had the power to stop the war 20 years before it started. He was the only man the Kauravas feared. One word from him could have ended the madness. But he did not speak a word. Why? Because he believed his vow had stripped him of his moral authority. He would plead every time, not direct, not take a stand. He allowed himself to become a mere weapon in the hands of a tyrant. And here is the ultimate crushing tragedy. It was a vow he never gave. Remember that, like a third commitment, which this is earlier,
Yes.
that one silenced him during the dice game. He never said it. He never promised the fisherman that he would be a slave to the chair, to the throne. He never promised his father he would support a feudal mindset. The third commitment became his downfall, and the entire Mahabharata happened because of that. Bhishma built his own prison, locked the door from inside, threw away the key. He convinced himself that he had to be silent, when in reality he was the only one who was free enough to speak and had the moral authority to stand up. So I would say, as a leadership lesson for all of us, be very careful of the rules you invent for yourself. We often tell ourselves, I have no choice. But in every situation, we have a choice. We just hide behind a commitment that we never actually made. Bhishma had 20 years to fix this, but he couldn't see the bottle that he was inside. He needed an external perspective, Krishna, to shake him up, but he didn't ask for help. And even when Krishna tries to tell him, he shuts him down by complicated reasoning. Krishna gives up. Literally, Krishna gives up saying, यार इससे बात करने कोई मतलब नहीं है. How many times have we faced this? Either because we don't listen to reason, or somebody else doesn't listen to our reason. We say, छोड़ो यार जाने दो. Krishna did that. Krishna said, भीष्म से बात करने का कोई मतलब नहीं है, छोड़ दो इसको. Modern retailing doesn't tell that, but this tells us Krishna gave up after some time. We all have blind spots. We must understand what my blind spots are. And this brings the leadership catalyst for those 2, 3 days of deep immersion when you do these programs. Because sometimes you need someone from outside, someone who isn't sworn to the throne, to hold up the mirror and say, your behavior is not loyalty, it is rigidity. Don't wait 20 years like Bhishma did to fix the culture while the team is intact. Don't wait for those arrows to pierce you lying on the bed of arrows and they say, sorry, I was my mistake. Not good. All right.
Uh, Sir, what I was thinking now that you put so many things into perspective. There's a very interesting question I want to ask you. If you were to coach Bhishma, if you were to be his catalyst for building up the leadership at Hastinapur Corporation, what is the lesson you would give him? What is the path you would put him on?
Okay, so we've analyzed history so far. Like I said, only the broad patterns we taken, not taken any line by line. We can go on further then days together discussing Bhishma. Let's just try and bring this into our own life. Okay. I want all of us who are listening into this, do a mental exercise with me. Identify yourself a vow or a oath or a commitment that you may have taken in your career or personal life. I don't mean a religious vow. I mean a mental script or a rule you live by. Script could be like, I will never contradict my manager or I'll not against my senior in public. Fair enough. I'll always put my family needs before my own health. Many of us are uh, do that. I'll never be the bad guy because I want to be a servant leader. So sometimes we tolerate mediocrity. I'm just the execution guy. Strategy and politics are not my job. You stay silent when strategy fails, when things don't work as per plan. I can't leave this toxic manager or leader because he stood by me during the layoff 5 years ago during COVID. So I'm now indebted to him. See, all these scripts that we might have, they sound noble. You want to be kind, you want to be grateful, but ask yourself, is this script still serving you or has it become a trap? I one scenario which I can remember, I worked with a VP recently. Let's call him Mr. Sharma, common name. His mental oath that he had taken was, I'll never engage in conflict. He hated confrontation. He thought it was unprofessional. So he had made a vow to himself that no, I'll be a nice man. सबके मिलजुल के काम करेंगे type. And he had a star performer, but that person was a bully who take advantage of Mr. Sharma. Sharma, you look the other way. He thought it will sort out itself out. He was a nice, just like Bhishma was loyal. But because Mr. Sharma refused to break his vow of niceness, one by one, the entire team started to quit. The attrition rate was way above what is the industry norm. His refusal to engage in conflict, to tackle this, Bhishma in his, a very competent person, caused the ultimate conflict, led to the destruction of the team. So I literally had to show him the mirror, saying that this is what is how you are impacting your team. What do you want? What is your choice? And he chose to confront the situation head on. And then the whole thing took a different turn. Yeah.
I think it's a very powerful lesson for everybody who's a leader. And also, if you are just a professional navigating through your office, this is also very important that, the part about trappings that we have only set for ourselves. That's something that we should definitely think about. When you were speaking, I was also thinking of the trappings I have set for myself and maybe how I can come out of them. So, sir, this has been a very, very, curiosity and thought-provoking session. We've looked at the ultimate insider who was too rigid. I mean, the rigidity has caused so much pain for the entire family and for the entire kingdom. So, you were just speaking about how we want to continue coming live and continue coming talking about the Mahabharata. So, who's going to be the focus for our next session? Do you want to give some hint to our
Okay,
audience?
before I give you that hint, one more thing which I just remembered just now, so these scripts, Lera, like Devrata's vows, probably started with a very good intention, and we want to be professional, you want to be grateful, but you must ask yourself, is this script still serving you, or has it become a trap? So that must always be in our mind to say that, is it still working out? Is it not working out? What is my purpose of my life? So ask these hard questions that by staying and fixing other person's mistake, are you helping him or are you preventing him from facing the consequences of his actions? Are you his partner or are you his enabler? So the most respected guy tolerated the abuse. They thought if he stays, the behavior must be acceptable. It was messy. It was the only way to stop the rot was to take a stand against this. So here's a challenge for this week. I want you to look at your loyalties. Are you loyal to a person or are you loyal to a purpose? What is your purpose? Because if your loyalty is to a person, a boss, a friend, or a partner, then and if that is forcing you to violate your own values or the values of organization, you are in a oath trap. Don't be a Bhishma. Be the leader who has the courage to say, context has changed, and because I care about my purpose, vision, and mission, I must change my stance. So Bhishma's tragedy was that he had the capacity to lead, but he denied himself the authority to lead. He steps aside, and nature abhors a vacuum. Because Bhishma stepped aside, the crown eventually went to Dhritarashtra. If Bhishma is the leader who wouldn't see the truth because of the vow, Dhritarashtra is the leader who couldn't see the truth because of his attachment. So tonight we've seen this fall of the ultimate insider, Bhishma, a man born with everything who lost it all because of his rigidity. And like you asked me, next Thursday, we are going to the exact opposite end of the spectrum. We will study the ultimate outsider, a man who was born with nothing, no kingdom, no title, no father to protect him, a man who had to fight for every inch of respect that he ever got. The darling of the masses. We call him the hero of charity. We call him the loyal friend. We see him as a tragic victim of system that hated his caste. Next week, we are going to challenge everything you think you know about him. Because this critical edition paints a darker picture. No holds barred. We think he was a victim. The text says here that he was an enabler. We think he was rejected by the princess at the Swayamvar because of his birth. The text says she never spoke a word against him. Why did he fail? Next week, we decode the man who had all the talent in the world, but whose insecurity became his destiny. The man who burned with so much envy for his rival that he forgot his own greatness. He is a son who set too soon. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. If you ever felt like an outsider in your own organization, if you ever have felt that you have work twice as hard to get half the credit, do not mix next Thursday. We're going to dive deep. Of course, we know who this person is. We're going to discuss why smartest of people make stupidest of decision when it involves their pet projects or their favorites. We are going to dissect the psychology of denial, which none other than karma.
Uh, I am super excited for next Thursday because, like you said, sir, he has been painted as the most generous person and the most charitable person. He's been painted as oh my God, the ultimate person who made so much sacrifice despite his lineage, despite the lack of opportunities to prove himself. So I'm really looking forward to this completely new perspective, and I'm sure we have a lot of excitement even amongst our audience. We have a lot of audience who stuck with us up to the very end. I'm very grateful
Thank
for
you
them.
very much.
Yeah, you guys are the reason we'll keep going. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. And I hope that you follow Sir on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and on the YouTube channel as well. Because then you can just DM whatever you want to ask him as well. So we'll take it up in the next sessions. Thank you so much. Thank you
So
so much, sir,
before
for
we open the any question answers, here's my final thought for the night.
Mm.
Leadership is not about being a statue. It is not about being rigid like a rock. It is about, I would say, being like water, consistent in nature, but adaptable in form. Don't let your past promises destroy your future potential. So I'm Commander Girish Konkar, and thank you for your time. And if there's still any questions, we'll gladly discuss them. Otherwise, like Aparna has mentioned, do join on those various social handles. We meet again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Any questions, Aparna, are there? Apurva, are there?
No, sir. I think we had one
Okay, great.
question that we've answered.
Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and take care. And look forward to seeing you all next time.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.